Welcome to God's Kingdom, where every story brings you closer to God.
All right, let's dive into one of the most powerful and, let's be honest, often misunderstood chapters in the entire Bible, Revelation chapter 1. Now, before we get to all the prophecies and judgments, the book kicks off with this foundational vision, a really awe-inspiring and frankly kind of terrifying portrait of the risen Jesus Christ. So let's break down what John actually saw. So let's just start with this question. Imagine this. What if you came face to face with Jesus, but not the humble teacher from the Gospels? What if you saw him in his full, unrestrained, divine glory? That's exactly the vision the Apostle John was given, and his account is just staggering. So John hears this voice, right? A voice like a trumpet. And when he turns around, he is just confronted with this image of pure majesty. That's, well, it's almost impossible to describe. But lucky for us, the book breaks this vision down detail by powerful detail. Okay, first thing he sees is a figure whose head and hair were white like wool, as white as snow. And this isn't just about being old, you know? In ancient imagery, this is a symbol of absolute purity, of deep wisdom, and an eternal nature. We're talking about someone who has existed forever. And then the eyes. John describes them as being like a blazing fire. Can you just imagine that? Eyes that see absolutely everything, that cut right through any pretense and see the pure truth of a situation. It's a look of piercing judgment and consuming holiness. And his voice? Yeah, it wasn't some soft, gentle whisper. John says it was like the roar of rushing waters, a powerful, overwhelming sound. This actually echoes descriptions of God's own voice in the Old Testament. It's a sound of such immense power and authority that you just can't ignore it or talk over it. And finally, to top it all off, John describes his face as shining like the sun in all its strength. We're not just talking about a little glow here. This is an overwhelming, blinding brilliance. It's so bright you can't even look at it directly. The whole picture is just one of absolute majesty and power. So you're probably wondering, who is seeing all this? And where in the world is he? I mean, the what of the vision is incredible, but the who and the where give us some really crucial context. John tells us he's on the island of Patmos. Now, listen, this was no Greek island getaway. It was a remote, rocky island in the Aegean Sea that the Roman Empire used as a prison colony. John was exiled there specifically for his faith, for his testimony about Jesus. He was totally isolated and suffering. And what's so crucial here is how John introduces himself. He doesn't pull rank and say, "Hey, it's me, the great apostle." Nope. Instead, he calls himself their companion in the suffering and kingdom and patient endurance. He's making a direct connection, letting the churches know, hey, I'm right here in the struggle with you. So it's in this lonely, difficult place that the whole vision kicks off. John says he was in the Spirit when he suddenly heard a loud voice behind him, a voice as commanding and clear as a trumpet blast, telling him to write down everything he was about to see. So John turns to see who's speaking, and he sees that glorified figure we just described, and then that figure reveals his identity in the most profound way you can imagine. So what's the natural human reaction to a vision this overwhelming? It's sheer terror and awe. John, the guy they called the beloved disciple, who once leaned against Jesus at the Last Supper, now sees him and just falls at his feet as if he were dead. That's how immense the gap is between our humanity and divine glory. But then, the figure does something amazing. He reaches out, places his right hand on John, and says, "Do not be afraid." And then he identifies himself with a title that's reserved for God alone. I am the first and the last. He's saying he's the beginning of everything and the end of everything. And then comes what might be the core of the entire Christian faith, all in one sentence. I am the living one. I was dead, and now look, I am alive forever and ever. I mean, that's the ultimate contrast, right? The one who experienced death is now the one who has completely conquered it. And if that wasn't enough, he makes this incredible declaration of ultimate authority. Holding the keys of death and Hades, which basically means the realm of the dead, it signifies total control. Death and the grave? They don't get the final say. He does. He alone has authority over life, death, and everything that comes after. Now, a vision like this is obviously filled with symbols, but thankfully, we aren't just left to guess what everything means. Jesus himself gives us the key to decode the central imagery. And the explanation is super direct. The 7 stars he's holding in his hand, Those are the angels or messengers of the 7 churches. And the 7 golden lampstands that he's standing among, those are the 7 churches themselves. This image shows he's right there, present and protecting his people, right in the middle of everything. So, what's the big takeaway from this incredible opening chapter? Well, it's way more than just a fantastic vision. It's the foundational message for the entire book, and really for believers in any era. Let's just boil it down to 3 key points. First, this book isn't really about decoding future events as much as it is about revealing who Jesus Christ truly is in all his glory and authority. Second, the central truth is this: Jesus is alive, he is present with his people, and he is totally in control of history and even death itself. And third, this whole vision was given to bring hope and to encourage patient endurance for churches that were facing some serious pressure and persecution. You know, the very beginning of the chapter makes its purpose crystal clear. There's a blessing promised to anyone who actually engages with this book, who reads it, hears it, and takes its words to heart. It's presented as a message that's both urgent and vitally important. And all of this leaves us with one final, really compelling thought. This overwhelming vision of authority and glory, this is just the introduction. This is just to establish who is speaking before he even starts his messages. So if this is how this story starts, what on earth could possibly come next?
Thank you for watching our video. Like, share, and subscribe for more.